Medikamente. Das muss man alles nehmen.
No way. No way.
No. That's a lot of things for a cold.
Are there different types of tablets?
Dat kan ik zo niet zien. Nee.
I have no idea.
Nou, er zitten wel medicijnen tussen die wij niet zouden voorschrijven en ook niet zouden afleveren. Op zich hebben we al deze medicijnen wel in voorraad in de apotheek. Maar ja, antibiotica voor beginnende verkoudheid doen we sowieso niet. Enzymen, ik zou niet zo goed weten wat ze daarmee bedoelen, welke medicijnen er dan voorgeschreven zijn. Antihistaminica geven we niet bij verkoudheid, alleen bij allergie. Ja, en die andere medicijnen hebben we ook wel in voorraad. Ja, decongestants, dat zijn eigenlijk dat is eigenlijk die neusspray wat je zou geven. En voor de rest, bij verkoudheid geven we dit lang niet allemaal. Ja? Ja, goed, dankjewel. Geen probleem.
So, für die gleiche Situation hier können wir abnehmen. Das ist der Could you take a look at this?
Sure.
And then that's the whole package for only one dose, but 3 times a day.
For how long?
3-4 days.
My goodness. And this is for the same illness that I...
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's amazing. Well, there are 2 antibiotics, so that is very strong. And the chances of having side effects from those antibiotics are very high.
Es kann sein, dass er schon auch eine bakterielle Superinfektion hat. Das zeigt sich aber generell dann doch darin, dass das Fieber höher ist, dass das Krankheitsgefühl stärker ist, dass das Sekret eitrig ist. Das ist alles nicht bei ihm der Fall.
An anti-inflammatory enzyme, very interesting. We never use those in the UK.
And then there's an antihistamine as well, which I'm not sure that would really benefit the patient in any way.
Antitussives, well, antitussives are for stopping the cough. We know they do not work. There's lots of evidence they show.
Also der Schleim zeigt ja an, dass der Körper sich reinigen will und das hilft ja auch, den Infekt zu überwinden. In dem Moment, wo ich das unterdrücke, hat der Patient vielleicht ein paar Stunden Ruhe, aber der Schleim bleibt in den Lungen drin oder in der Nase und die Heilung wird dadurch eigentlich verzögert.
Mucolytics are used for people with very severe chest disease.
And they're potentially dangerous because they could raise the patient's blood pressure and cause heart disease or heart attack, even in young children.
And then 1 digestant. So that means that's to protect the stomach against all the other pills. So you're taking just 1 pill to protect from all the other pills as well. That's extraordinary.
이게 이제 감기 환자에게 처방된 약이고, this is medication for common cold patient from Korea.
They get all this?
Yes, it's 10 tablets.
And for how long?
Voor 3
Hoe
dagen.
lang? 3 dagen?
Voor 3-4 dagen.
En wat kost dit? Dit is belachelijk. Dit is heel erg dat dit gebeurt. Ik kan echt zeggen dat van de lijst van pillen die hierin zit, geen van de medicijnen een bewezen effect heeft op het verloop van de ziekte. Dus je zult er geen dag korter ziek van zijn. Sommige van de medicijnen kunnen je misschien iets beter laten voelen. Maar eigenlijk denk ik nog niet eens dat er iets tussen zit wat je beter laat voelen.
Buikpijn, heb je ook buikpijn? Heb je ook keelpijn? Nou, ze heeft nu geen koorts.
Nee. Gisteravond. Die is mooi.
Zo.
Die hebben we nog nooit gezien, hè?
Zo, luister konijn. Mag ik even zo dat... Ja? Gaan we even luisteren. Doe maar zuchten zo. Niet ontstoken. Nee hoor. Nee. Is allemaal goed. Zo, mag je weer afkomen? Hoppakee. Gaan we even stop schrijven. Nou, het gaat beter worden.
Ja.
Oké.
Dank u wel. Tot ziens.
Tot ziens.
Mijn dochtertje is al de hele week ziek. En ik dacht toch even voor het weekend even de dokter ernaar te laten kijken. Of het een infectie of iets is. Want ze heeft telkens koorts en dan gaat het weer over en dan weer koorts. Dus ik vond het lang duren, zeg maar.
한 주간 계속 아파서 나오셨다고요? 그러면 wat heeft de dokter eigenlijk voor haar voorgeschreven of gezegd?
Niks voorgeschreven, hij heeft alles gecontroleerd en het is waarschijnlijk gewoon een virus. En, ja, en dus ze moeten gewoon uitzieken. Ja.
Zo, voor een onschuldige virusinfectie. Ja.
Ja.
Ja. Nee, dat doen we in Nederland niet. Zeker niet. Nee. Waarom gebeurt dat? Dat gebeurt omdat je dus geïnfecteerd wordt met een verkoudheidsvirus. Er zijn er heel veel van, meer dan 20.000. Dat zijn griepvirussen, verkoudheidsvirussen. En het zijn onschuldige aandoeningen die dus in het Engels self-limiting zijn, gaan vanzelf over. En je hoest het dus aan, gaat door de lucht.
I think the 1960s was the time when the viruses were being discovered and people were very excited, thinking that they would be able to develop a vaccine or some medicine. You're right, some of the centres, the big centres, have closed, and the reason is, I think, that no cure was found. And people become disillusioned. They thought in the 1960s that just like polio or smallpox, we would have a vaccine or a cure. But we do not have that vaccine at present. So there was no cure. And I'm doubtful if we will ever find a single cure, because it is not a single disease, it's a mixture of diseases.
people have always had colds. Probably cavemen had colds. Runny nose and a sore throat, but they were called catarrhs. And a catarrh was just a runniness. And that's what people thought it was. They used to call it a flux. Things would run out of your nose, run out of your mouth, or your eyes. You could have a catarrh anywhere. We say, feed a cold and starve a fever. So people would say you should eat a lot when you have a cold. Other people would say, no, when you have a cold, you shouldn't eat too much. But so people tried things like that. And then they tried local remedies that they swallowed. And I'm sure that everybody in the audience has a favorite treatment for their cold. None of them work. But since none of them work, they all work. That when there is no good treatment, there are 100 treatments.
어우 독한데? 여보, 감기도 하나 사오지 그래.
전에 감기 걸렸구먼. 독한데. 이봐, 자네 나보면 생각나는 거 없어?
아, 시작부터 확 잡아주는 거? 복잡한 감기에 잘 들어요. 감기?
And I can understand. Families are going to watch your documentary, and they're going to say, "This guy, he just doesn't like medicine. He thinks that his patients are going to like this. I've been taking these medicines my whole life, and they work." I've been on the other side, and I've watched documentaries where I've said, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." But the evidence is the evidence, and the doctors can't justify what's happening in Korea cannot be justified with the large weight of medical evidence that we have. These medicines don't work for colds. Antibiotics don't work for colds, and those are the facts. These are not things that one doctor like myself is making up. This is the large body of evidence that's throughout the medical literature across the world.
And so they've done studies that have used a medicine, like a cough and cold medicine, and also a placebo. What a placebo is it's a medicine that looks and tastes like the regular medicine, but doesn't have any medicinal properties. And when they've done those studies and then had a group that took no medicine, they found that they got better at the same rate of time. So whether you got the medicine, the placebo, or you got no medicine, in general, all groups got better at the same amount of time.
Dit is puur placebo-effect als je hier beter van gaat voelen. Als je 10 placebo-tabletten in dezelfde vorm zou gieten, zouden ze net zo goed werken als deze medicijnen die u hier nu aan me geeft.
Some watching this program might say, well, I've taken the medicines and I feel better because I've taken them. And I would answer that by two things. One is that they were going to get better anyway. The second thing would be is that there's a large placebo effect by taking medicines. That by taking something, your body thinks that you feel that you're doing better. And the third thing is that you've been told by advertising and by the box for so many years, for your whole life, that these medicines work, that you start to believe that if the box says it works, then it's going to work. So you've been misled by the advertising for a long time.
Okay, my name's Alexandra Richmond and I'm a health and beauty consumer analyst. Within our research, we found out as well that 60% of people in the UK have suffered from a cold in the past 12 months. And this is one of the key reasons, obviously, why it's an attractive market to manufacturers.
Doctor, and that's what they prescribed for a cold.
Oh my goodness.
But it's like really beginning of the cold. They have a
Oh my gosh, you'd rattle if you jumped up and down after taking all of those. Gosh, it's no wonder it's such a big market then if you've got products for absolutely everything. I think here in the UK people are very much, they want convenience, they want to deal with all of their symptoms in one hit, and so they wouldn't necessarily take so many separate tablets for a cold. That's crazy.
The biggest markets are markets aimed at essentially normal people. If you have a drug that's aimed toward curing an unusual illness, then they don't make as big a profit as if they can sell drugs to essentially normal people. And so there are a lot of essentially normal people who have colds, 2 or 3 colds a year. If they can sell drugs, if they can convince these people that these drugs are going to cure their colds or make it significantly better, then they have an enormous market, both over-the-counter and prescription drugs. So it's in their interest to convince the public that these illnesses are dangerous, that they really should be taking these drugs. Now, it's interesting that in Korea, they seem to be concentrating on the common cold.
I wonder about the pharmaceutical companies and their incentives.
Dat er heel veel geld mee verdiend wordt. En dat is denk ik het enige belang van deze pillen, dat er geld verdiend wordt.
But my concern is not the welfare of the pharmaceutical companies. My concern is for my patients and the children that I treat. Because it's easy, patients feel satisfied when they leave because they have something in their hand. If I send somebody home and say, just wait a few more days and it'll get better, and I don't take the time to explain to them why I'm not giving them a prescription or giving them pills, they can be frustrated. So it's just much easier for their doctor to give them a prescription and say, take these 4 pills and you'll feel better in 3 or 4 days. The family walks out and says, I got medicine, I'm going to feel better. They're going to the doctor because they want to be fixed. It takes a little bit more time to explain to them that there's no magic medicine that's going to fix this illness.
그러면 어느 정도면 더 치료가 될까요? 한 3일 정도 복용하면.
Because the patient who goes away with no medicine and gets better will realize that the next time he becomes ill with the same illness, he does not need to go and see a doctor. So he will get better on his own without seeing a doctor. So he will have learnt how to look after the illness himself. The other doctor will think, the other patient will say, I got better because of the medicine that I got at the doctor. And so when he gets ill again, he will go and see the doctor. So it also changes the way that patients think about disease. If they always get medicines from the doctor when they go, it means that they will always come back. So it makes the health service and doctors much busier if you give lots of medicine.
Ik denk dat de Koreaanse patiënten zich goed moeten afvragen of al die medicijnen wel nodig zijn. En dat ze aan een dokter moeten vragen wat er gebeurt als ze die medicijnen niet nemen. En heel vaak zal het dan zo zijn dat de dokter dan moet erkennen dat het zonder die medicijnen ook overgaat.
제가 잘 약을 원래 잘 안 먹어요. 그래서 어떻게 될까요?
After 300 yards, you have reached your destination.
Okay. Very interesting. I assume this is what somebody takes each day. We wouldn't normally give an antihistamine unless the person has had the cold for more than a week. Then it would help. But if it's just been a few days, we wouldn't bother with that. And the digestant, no, we wouldn't bother with that. The only other point I'd make is some of these are quite strong medicines.
항생제 같은 거는 어떻게 들어가요?
Verkoudheid.
Verkoudheid.
Ja. Daar gaat het over.
Je herkent die dingen ook.
Ja, merendeel wel. Maar het is echt waanzinnig. Oké. Ja, ik ben echt verbaasd. Maar als allerbelangrijkste dus geen antibiotica voor common cold. Want dat is echt schadelijk. Voor de patiënt, maar ook voor het ontwikkelen van resistentie.
Could a medicine be a problem when you're getting a cold? If it's an antibiotic, yes, we don't need antibiotics.
White sputum for 2 days?
Yes. So I think the interesting one on this list, which I didn't I didn't say, is the antibiotic. So, in fact, in different countries, between 40 and 60% of people who have a cold are given an antibiotic. And there really isn't evidence that it makes people get better more quickly. And actually, there have been studies to show that people actually come back to the doctor more often if they've been given an antibiotic because they have complications like a rash or diarrhea, which has resulted from inappropriate antibiotic use.
If you look at the United Kingdom, we discovered in 1950 that antibiotics were no good for common cold. Many clinical trials were done with penicillin, which was one of the first antibiotics, and later with other antibiotics, because someone came forward and said, look, we've given these people antibiotics and the common cold is cured. But the problem is you need to do a properly controlled clinical trial. Antibiotic against a placebo. And then what you find out is both groups cure naturally, because we cure the common cold with our own body. We don't need the antibiotics.
You know, when the doctor gives somebody with a cold an antibiotic, it's not an antibiotic directed toward a specific germ. You just have a virus, a cold virus. So it's just an antibiotic taken off the shelf. Probably a broad spectrum antibiotic. That means an antibiotic that's effective against a lot of different germs. If you take antibiotics for every single cold, you run a serious risk of growing resistant organisms, resistant bacteria. The antibiotics don't kill the cold viruses, as I told you, but they will kill the bacteria.
The antibiotic will kill many of the bacteria within the body. The problem is it kills the friendly bacteria as well as any others. For every single cell of our body, we have 100 bacteria on the skin and in the gut, and these are friends in many cases. We don't want to kill our friends Because when we kill our friends, the enemies move in, and you end up perhaps with a problem in the stomach, or a problem in the bladder, or some other part of the body, or maybe a fungus will develop in the body. So please, please, keep away from the antibiotics when you have a cold. You must be confident and strong and know that your body will get rid of the viruses. Antibiotics will only create problems with common cold.
안녕하세요. 저는 6살 유나입니다.
유나가요. 감기 기운이 좀 있어요. 기침 조금 하고요. 맑은 콧물 나오고요. 그리고 가래 좀 끓고, 그리고 엊그저께 약간 미열이 있었는데 지금 좀 나아진 것 같고요. 언제부터 시작했어요? 한 4월 됐어요. 코를 막혀요. 코 답답해 하는 정도까지는 아니었고요. 어디 잠은 잘 자는 것 같아요? 네, 잠은 잘 자는데. 먹는 것도 왼쪽으로 먹어요? 네. 이번에 감기가 좀 심하게 돌아요. 그렇죠. 네. 그래가지고 이번 동네에서도 많고 중요한도 많이 생기고 지금 완전히 열 떨어진 거죠? 네. 힘도 별로 안 나나 봐요. 나오진 않지는. 주말까지 먹게 하고 있을게요. 네. 3일 정도입니다. 네. 약해. 사실 네, 감사합니다. 약은 어떤 게 처방되나요? 약요? 네. 기침에 대한 거 하고 이제 감기에 대한 거. 항생제 같은 거. 항생제 약간 넣었어요. 중요한 걸까봐. 중요한 거. 네, 요번에 중요한 게 많이 와요.
The patient, and the left side is the amount of it.
I would not let my daughter have any of these medicines.
Why not?
Clear nasal discharge for 3 days.
Only very rarely would you have an antibiotic needed. So we find that 95 out of 100 children are getting an antibiotic when they don't need it. This is the problem.
So I can't know what these are, you know, just by looking at them, but I see that there's a lot of pills here. Different types of medicines have different kinds of side effects. So the decongestants can cause problems like making your heart rate go very rapid, making your blood pressure go up. Also, you can get abnormal heart rhythms with those medicines. And also, one thing that's very interesting that people don't know is you can actually get what's called a psychotic reaction. So young children who've taken the medicines might feel or think that they have like spiders or bugs crawling on them. And when you actually stop the medicine, those signs and symptoms go away. In addition, in Baltimore City, we've had 4 children who have died of these preparations. And the FDA then looked at over the last 30 years in the United States and found that there were over 52 deaths of young children from cough and cold medications.
When is cold medicine needed for the children?
My feeling is that it's never needed. And parents love their children. It's hard to see your child look uncomfortable. And so, of course, a loving parent is going to want to do something active and do whatever they can for their child. But I think it's very important that people know that these medicines, studies have looked at that and they don't work. They don't help decrease a lot of the symptoms of cough or runny nose, And there's also the potential danger that I mentioned earlier. So I think it's very important for parents to be well educated about this and look at the risks and benefits of these medications in deciding whether they should give their child these medications. Certainly, I would strongly recommend that a parent of a child who's 2 or younger not give these medications.
At all.
At all.
And can they just wait until their children get older?
Absolutely. So why invest so much money in something that's not going to help your child and has potentially bad side effects? Remember, I'd mentioned earlier that we've looked back and over 30 years, over 50 children have died from cough and cold medicines and from some of the side effects. Another, the Center for Disease Control, which is a large center in the United States, have looked at this, and over the last 2 years, 1,500 children who are 2 or less have presented to emergency rooms from bad side effects from these preparations. So there is a potential danger of these preparations, and they don't help. So from my perspective, why use the money? Why put a child or a patient at risk if we know it doesn't help and there's potential harm? The antibiotics cannot be used to prevent. On rare occasions, a very bad cold could turn into a pneumonia or turn into a sinus infection that could be caused by a bacteria, and you might need an antibiotic for that. But that's usually when the symptoms have lasted for 2 or 3 weeks. The antibiotics will not necessarily prevent you from getting a bacterial infection. And so I think it's important for the doctors in your country to help parents to realize, again, that there are dangers to using the medicines, there's cost, and there's side effects, and to really target their use for when they're really needed.
I know that if you are a mother or a father and your child has an ear infection or a throat infection or maybe coughing, you run to the doctor and you say, you want something strong. You want an antibiotic because your child is ill. But remember, your child is ill with a common cold virus, not with a bacteria. It's very rare for the children to get a bacterial infection, and giving them an antibiotic immediately puts them at risk. It will upset all of their stomach. Remember, the antibiotics can also affect the development of the bones and the teeth within the child, so you're putting them at risk unnecessarily.
In Korea. En in Korea is het probleem van resistentie al groot, weet ik. En het wordt alleen maar groter en er komt een moment dat ook bacteriën niet meer te behandelen zijn met antibiotica. Waarom niet? Omdat er dus kilo's antibiotica voor een verkoudheid worden uitgedeeld waar het helemaal niet voor helpt. Het enige wat er gebeurt is dat de bacterie resistent wordt. En als je wel het antibioticum nodig hebt, dan werkt het niet meer. Dus het moet echt, antibiotica voor common cold zijn zinloos.
So I think the people really need to have the confidence to know that they're not going to die with a common cold. They should wait, and they will cure. Of course, what happens is they go to the doctor and they say, I need an antibiotic. You must give me an antibiotic. The pharmacist, give me an antibiotic. They take the antibiotic, and of course the cold cures anyway. They believe it's the antibiotic that's done this. It's not.
제가 감기를 먹거든요. 네. 그리고 우리 가족들이 감기가 걸렸을 때도 굉장히 심하게 써요. 그러나 의사들이 적대요소는 해안이거든요. 의사들이 하는 게 있어요.
Experience is from the 19th century. In the middle of the 20th century, we realized that you need clinical trials. You need randomized, controlled clinical trials to know whether a drug is effective or not, because experience is too subject to bias. There is no way an individual doctor can say that this antibiotic cures colds. There's no way. because he hasn't done a randomized controlled clinical trial, a double-blind randomized controlled clinical trial. And the clinical trials have shown, and the biological science has shown, that antibiotics do not cure the common cold. They have no effect on cold viruses. What they do have an effect on is complications of the common cold caused by bacteria. That they can cure.
Well, did human beings succeed in developing a cure for the cold? Well, not human beings thinking about it, but nature has developed a cure.
So our bodies are really amazing, and there is, for people who are in general healthy, there is a very well orchestrated way that your body reacts to any kind of virus. And what happens is that there's different kind of cells that rev up in your body that then attack the virus and help to eliminate the virus over several days.
And our immune system, the cells that make up the immune system and the viruses, have been fighting together for millions of years. And we are still here. And the viruses are still here. Many battles, but the war is not finished yet.
The cold is the same cold now as 100 years, 500 years. What's changed? Meaning. That's the important thing is, it's very hard to just let it be what it is. It just is what it is. That's enough.